Hello, everyone. My name is Sonya, and I'm the founder and product manager at Nave. Nave is a Kanban analytics suite that helps teams optimize their workflows and maintain stable systems. Today, I would like to talk about data-driven forecasting and how this approach increases the predictability of your systems. More than 50 years ago, Peter Drucker, a management consultant and author described as the founder of modern management, predicted that we would shift to a knowledge society. He said that information will change the way people work. That knowledge will become one of the most valuable assets of economics today. He said that we will start generating value with our minds. And he describes the people who does that as knowledge workers. So who is a knowledge worker? Simply described, knowledge workers are people whose job requires them to think for a living. Knowledge workers are people who need to figure out what they need to do. People who weigh many factors to determine the best course of action. People whose actions are based on many sources of information. These are people who gather clues, follow up, and discover new possibilities. In knowledge work, we make assumptions about the future. In the most effective manner, we validate these assumptions by delivering results early and often. We learn what brings value and avoid the risk of spending time and money on the wrong things. We do that, all of that, simply because the nature of knowledge work is unpredictable. The unpredictable nature of knowledge work is what makes it really difficult to perform accurate forecasts. And accurate forecasting is essential for decision making, as it brings information about potential future events and their consequences for your business. Accurate forecasting increases the confidence of management while making decisions. And decisions come with a cost. Wrong decisions come with a high cost and poor business outcomes. Reliability is another aspect that is threatened by wrong decision making. Reliability is very easy to lose and hard to gain. Being reliable means to do everything you've promised you're going to do in a consistent manner. If we don't keep our promises constantly, we'll lose our reliability and risk our reputation as professionals. So when it comes to product management, the big question always seems to be, when will this be done? The problem is rooted into the expectation of having a single certain delivery date as an answer. And people tend to provide it. Fact is, people feel more comfortable being wrong than uncertain. The fear of uncertainty is a cultural problem. Professor Geert Hofstede, a Dutch population biologist, conducted one of the most comprehensive studies of how values are influenced by national culture. He defines 6 dimensions of national culture, one being the uncertainty avoidance index. The index is scaled from 0 to 100. The higher the index, the more uncomfortable to uncertainty you are as a society. Countries exhibiting strong uncertainty avoidance index maintain rigid codes of belief and behavior and are intolerant to unorthodox ideas. We would rather provide a single certain delivery date that's wrong rather than remain uncertain. So how can we answer the question, when will this be done? Is it possible to predict the exact delivery date despite the unpredictability of knowledge work? Is it possible to predict the exact time a work item will take to go through the whole process while coordinating the rest of the work in progress at the same time? Are we capable to predict that there won't be any additional work coming in between, any bottlenecks, any external blockers, any dependencies that would cause a delay? There are two approaches that are trying to provide the answer of when will this be done question. An estimate and a forecast. What's the difference? An estimate is a prediction based on guesswork, good feeling, or judgment. It is communicated as a single value. It could be a number of days or a delivery date, for example, and it doesn't communicate any probability of its occurrence. Forecasts, on the other hand, are based on past performance data. They come with a range of lead times or a range of values and the probabilities of each value being achieved. Forecasting is faster, cheaper, and more reliable than estimating. When making business decisions, we're constantly confronted with possibilities whose outcomes we don't know. Getting rid of uncertainty and being in charge of everything is simply impossible. The challenge is dealing with the unknown and uncertain in an effective manner, and that's the realm of probability. Using a probabilistic approach of making future predictions based on past performance data increases the predictability of your outcomes. It enables us to define and establish service level agreements with more confidence and deliver value to our customers in a consistent and predictable manner. It helps us maintain high levels of customer and stakeholder trust, satisfaction, and retention. A common misconception is that in Kanban there are no commitments. Absolutely not true. In flow-based systems, teams commit on the individual item by making just-in-time commitment. Just-in-time commitment is a commitment that happens at the last possible moment. This is the moment when we start working on something. This approach provides great flexibility as we're able to reprioritize up until the moment we start working on something and the task is put into the process. Once the work is already in the workflow, it is considered committed and the team should do everything on their power to meet that commitment. Commitments in Kanban are communicated as forecasts. They come with a range of lead times and the probability of achieving each of them. They look like we expect this task to be delivered in less than 5 days, and we're 85% certain it will be. Or there is a 50% chance of finishing this item in less than 2 days. Commitments are not contracts. These are goals, and there is always a chance of them not being kept. The challenge manifests itself when teams need to deal with the unpredictable nature of knowledge work, and they shouldn't be blamed if they don't manage to meet a commitment every time. Think about failures as opportunities for improvement. It will help you build an environment of evolutionary change and a culture of trust, respect, and appreciation. The accuracy of your forecasts strongly depends on the stability of your system. To gauge the stability of a system, we need to take a look at the cumulative flow diagram. The top line of the graph represents the arrival rate of your tasks, while the bottom one, their departures. We need to monitor how the lines move over time in order to maintain a stable system. The vertical distance between the lines indicates all work in progress. If WIP is decreasing, the distance between the lines will start shrinking. This means that work is completed faster than it arrives. It signals that we're at capacity to handle more work. If WIP is increasing, though, this signals that arrival rate is higher than the departure rate and denotes that there is a bottleneck in the system and your team is struggling to deliver results. In order to maintain a stable system, strive to keep WIP as consistent as possible. As WIP is consistent, both the arrival and departure lines are going to grow in sync, and the distance between them will stay equal. As long as WIP is consistent, and as long as the average age of WIP is consistent, you are maintaining a stable system. And stable systems, the more stable your system is, the more predictable it becomes. And predictable systems produce more accurate forecasts. So let's take a look at a couple of the most effective approaches of forecasting the delivery dates of a single item and multiple items using past performance data. Scatter plot diagrams are very useful when it comes to lead time analysis. They represent all of your completed tasks as dots scattered on a plot. The horizontal axis is your timeline, while the vertical axis shows how much tasks have taken to complete. By glancing over each dot, you can see the date a task has been finished, as well as its lead time. The dotted horizontal lines stretching across the graph are called percentile lines. We use percentiles to establish service level agreements and the probability of a certain commitment points being met. For example, here we see that the 50th percentile points to 2 days. This means that half of the tasks so far have been finished in less than 2 days. Now we can say that any task in the future will take 2 days with 50% certainty. We can also say that there is an 85% chance of completing any future task in less than 5 days, and 95% probability of finishing anything we start in less than 17 days. Of course, the percentiles you use to define your SLAS strongly depends on your context. It could be that you and your customers are perfectly happy with a confidence of 85%, or you both need a confidence level that's higher than that. What you can also do is to filter your data by task type. It is highly likely that the lead time that comes with the 85th percentile for user stories is much different than the lead time that comes with the 85th percentile for bugs, for example. That way, you can define different SLAs for the different items you're committing. You can do the same by filtering your data using classes of service. The results will still be valid. So once you have your delivery time subtracted from your expected delivery date, for example, if you'd like to deliver on the 10th of November, and your forecast says that there is an 85% chance to finish any task in up to 5 days, this means that if you start working on the task on 5th of November, there is an 85% chance of delivering it on time. As the time passes, you will observe that those 5 days already start pointing to your 95th percentile, and the lead times associated to the 85th percentile are going down. By shifting all the percentiles down, you have already improved your performance. And by keeping the lines close to each other, you are reducing variability and thus increasing the predictability in your system. How much data do you need to get started? The answer is not much, probably around 20 finished items. The emphasis here is on the quality, not the quantity. The more stable your system is, the less data you will need to perform accurate forecasts. To come up with the probabilities when forecasting the delivery dates of multiple tasks, we use the Monte Carlo simulations. The simulation relies on a large number of random trials based on past throughput data in order to predict the throughput of any future time frame. You define the start date and the number of tasks, and it is going to produce a range of dates together with the probabilities coming with each date. So for each day, for every day in the future, the prediction is going to take the throughput of any random day in the past to simulate how many items are likely to get done. For example, if you've had a throughput of 10 tasks on 1st of October, then the simulation will take that number and assume that this is the amount of work that's going to be finished on 1st of November. Then, in order to predict the probable throughput for the 2nd of November, it will take the throughput of a random day in the past and assign it to the 2nd of November, and so on. The simulation will run tens of thousands of times before it produces as a result a probability distribution with the percentiles increasing from left to right. In this setup, we have a backlog with 20 items. We want to start working on them on the 1st of November. And our simulation says that we have an 85% chance of finishing all the items in the backlog until 17th of November. The further we go in time, the higher the chance of finishing all tasks. Now that we've talked about how to make accurate forecasts, I would like to spend some time talking about the approaches that are yet unreliable. Let's talk about Little's Law. Little's Law links the three main flow metrics, lead time, work in progress, and throughput, in one simple formula. Little's Law equals to work in progress divided by throughput. Little's Law only deals with average values. So let's say you have an average WIP of 6 tasks and an average throughput of 3 tasks per day. This gives a configuration of average lead time of 2 days. But for this equation to hold water, the following assumptions need to be valid for the time period we're investigating. The average arrival rate is equal to the average departure rate. All tasks entering the system should exit the system as soon as they're completed. There shouldn't be large variances in WIP between the beginning and the end of the time period in question. The average WIP age should remain the same, neither increasing nor decreasing, and consistent units must be used to measure lead time, work in progress, and throughput. Little's Law is not affected by practically anything else. As the assumptions become more accurate, your process behavior will become more and more predictable. So let's say that we have average WIP of 6 tasks, average throughput of 3 tasks per day, and an average lead time of 2 days. What happens if we increase our WIP? As long as the assumptions hold, then Little's Law can still apply. However, we cannot say that if we increase our average WIP to 12 tasks and keep our average lead time to 2 days, then our average throughput will become 6 tasks per day. Little's Law won't make that prediction. It will only tell you that a change in the average WIP will result in a change in either one or both average lead time and average throughput. The reason why this doesn't work is because in order for the law to work, all of its assumptions need to be valid. This means that a prerequisite for its accuracy is to guarantee that none of the assumptions will be violated in the future. And even if that's the case, this is still an equation of averages. Since each of the components is an average, the calculation will produce an average, and we cannot make probabilistic forecasts based on averages. Forecasting based on averages can land you in a hot water. It only makes sense if you have information about the shape of the underlying distribution of your data. If you don't, there is no way to associate any percentile with the average value. And if you don't have the probability, if you don't have the distribution, you cannot define the probability. And if you don't have a probability, you cannot make a forecast. Little's Law is about taking a look back in time and see what has happened. It's about examining the predictability of your system. The power of the law is hidden behind their assumptions. It provides a set of policies to be adopted in order to maintain stable systems. Instead of trying to make future predictions, adopt the little small policies as assumptions as explicit policies to boost the predictability and consistency of your workflow. The cumulative flow diagram is a great tool when it comes to tracking the stability of your system, but it's not a tool suitable for making any future predictions. If you would like to make any projections in CFD, you should have a backlog displayed in it, and it is not typical for CFD to have backlogs in it. If that's the case, you might be tempted to make a straight line projection of the throughput line while it intersects the backlog line in order to determine the delivery date of finishing all tasks in your backlog. There are a couple of reasons why this approach doesn't work. First, again, this is a prediction based on averages, and predictions based on averages are unreliable. Then, as the time goes by, there will be variability in both the backlog and the average throughput, which means that the intersection point will probably change. Furthermore, that approach doesn't provide a range of dates. And even if you draw an optimistic and pessimistic lines for the backlog and the throughput to define that date range, you will still do that based on an assumption and not based on historical performance data. And finally, there is no probability coming with this data set. If you really want to make probabilistic forecasts, stick to tools like Scatterplot for lead times and the Monte Carlo simulation. Thinking probabilistically means having the willingness to ask questions like, what if we're wrong? What might happen next? What could have happened now? And take the whole set of possibilities and act on them, rather than assuming that everything is going to go by plan. Knowledge work is complicated. A lot of surprising and unexpected things happen. Start making probabilistic forecasts using past performance data. If you have the data, use the data. If you don't have the data, collect the data and start using the data. It will produce as good or even better results in a lot less time. Keep your old approach and the probabilistic approach together for a while and observe the results. With the time, it will become obvious which one works best for you. Thinking probabilistically increases the predictability of your outcomes and improves decision making. And most importantly, it gives us the opportunity to spend our time on what matters the most, delivering customer value. Thank you.